Thank you very much for this unique opportunity to talk with your students and you. I'm really delighted and pleased. Well, I am Cabot Delphine Fondia. I hail from Cameroon. I used to be in the classroom teaching chemistry as the main subject, and sometimes I teach physics, but presently I am an inspector. I go around schools in my locality to try to work collaboratively with other chemistry teachers and see if they move on with the norms of teaching chemistry in line with the competency-based approach that my country had adopted. You know, education in my country, we used to base teaching on the method which is called objective-based approach. But now the world is going ahead, so Cameroon is not left behind. So we are also in the race to teach our students, our learners, using the competency-based approach. Though I am inspecting, I still continue teaching. Some of my students still contact me and we do some exchange. I also engage in online teaching. I teach worldwide, so I have students who contact me who might be in other countries like your country, for example, and have difficulty in some aspects of chemistry. So I try to make it easier and facilitate work for them. So basically, I intend to continue with my master's this coming academic year, and why not go on with PhD by the grace of God.
Yes, I have no doubts that you are a passionate educator. I think nobody can stop you because the way that you teach, the way that you approach. So simply superb educator, no doubt about that. So I wish you that you will very soon get the doctor's degree, the much needed degree. I think the degree itself is honored to be with you, in fact. So without wasting our time, and I would like to invite my students to interact with you. In one of our in the past, I think the testing, and you happen to text me that you are an English teacher. I still think that you are an English teacher, and right now I think I have just come to know the fact that you are a chemistry and a physics teacher. So I know that dealing, especially the students in the developing countries like India and Cameroon, because we have limited resources as far as the experiments are concerned. So when you were a chemistry and physics teacher, how did you use to deal with the experiments when it comes to the physics and the chemistry theorems?
Now it depends on what resources my school has. We use the resources available and adapt. What we do not have, we try possible best using what stands. We use a lot of plastics in my chemistry laboratory. We make use of plastics, the plastics around plastic bottles. We use them a lot because we know that they hamper our environment. So rather than waiting for the real bottles that we normally use in the lab, we try now to engage the learners, the students, to come along to school with those plastics so that we can make use of them in the form of recycling. And when sometimes too, when there is no means of even adapting something in the environment, we might leave aside such activities that warrant us to use equipment that we do not have. We'll leave those activities aside and only base our attention on the activities that we can have resources easily. Yeah, that's what makes us move along. So sometimes for some schools that do not even have anything at all, they just select 1, 2, or 3 exercises and activities and engage in those activities. In that case, now we say they really have much work. So when that is the case, the parents come in to help, to assist the administration of the school. The parents come in and try to contribute financially to assist the school in the purchase of some of those very important resources and equipment that are needed in the lab. You know that if we compare the chemistry lab and the physics lab, chemistry is really quite expensive because most of its resources are, after you using them, they become waste, like chemicals. We can't recycle the chemicals. So as we use, we discard or we throw away. So we need to always replenish. We need to always replace what we have used. Unlike in the physics laboratory, whereby once those equipments are bought, they are there, they are machines, so they are there. We can use and reuse and reuse and reuse. So that's the difference.
So I do agree with you in all aspects that you shared regarding all things. But the thing is that if a teacher is dedicated, if determined, I think the community, the teachers and the parents will definitely come to the teacher's doorstep and they definitely assist you. That's what you proved as one of the best example in your school. So I request.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if that is what entails in India as well.
Yeah, in India too, we have many shortcomings when it comes to the laboratory things. But even though some teachers, in the case of some teachers, though they have enough resources, they don't want to do experiments. That's a different story. But in normally speaking, and we have limited resources. But nowadays the government has recognized the very need of laboratory and the related items, and it has been giving funding to the schools to procure these laboratory related items. So but still I think there are some issues. So I request you now to answer to my students' questions as briefly as you can, because we have a time constraints.
My name is Aditya. I am studying 7th grade. I start reading books, playing games, and watching TV. My life ambition is to become a software engineer. Can I ask one question, ma'am?
Yes, come again.
What is the culture of Cameroon?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that question. It's very, very, very interesting. Well, Cameroon is a multicultural country. We have over 100 different cultural or ethnic groups in Cameroon. These over 100 cultural groups stem from 2 main linguistic cultural background. 2 main linguistic cultural background, excuse me, the English, and the French. Now, in the English cultural background, we normally call the Anglo-Saxon system, while in the French cultural background, we call the Francophone system. We have in Cameroon the Bantu tribe. We have the Sawa tribe. You know, when we talk about Sawa, those who live around the coastal region. You know, Cameroon shares border with the ocean. And if you are versed with your geography, we have the Atlantic Ocean. So all those tribes, the tribal groups around that area are what we call the Sawa population. And I happen to come from one of those Sawa tribes. We are descendants from Nigeria. So Nigeria is our neighboring country, and we are descendants. So we have the same ancestral link with Nigeria, where I come from in Cameroon. So you see that we have some common aspects of food and some cultural manifestation with the Nigeria, some part of Nigeria, which also shares border with Cameroon. Then you have now the Tigray tribes. That is the nomads. We call them the nomads. Those that move from one place to another. They are found in the northern part of Cameroon, and their religion is mostly Muslim religion. Though in the northern part of Cameroon, you also find the Christian religion, but the majority there is the Muslim religion. While in the southern part of Cameroon, it is also mixed, Muslim and Christianity, but the Christianity outweighs or outnumbers the Muslim in the southern part of Cameroon. If you know the history and geography of Cameroon, I want to tell you that Cameroon is made up of 10 regions, which used to be called 10 provinces. So because of the aspect of us wanting to get decentralization, to decentralize our government system, this was transformed from provinces to regions. So we have 10 regions in our country, and in the 10 regions you find a lot of cultural identity, cultural aspects. Our country Cameroon is really unique in its multiculturalism, like Nigeria. We have a lot of food, interesting food. Our dressing is also unique. We have a lot of things when it comes to dressing and tradition. So our country has that which attracts. That's the main thing that attracts tourists to visit my country, Cameroon, because of our multiculturalism.
Okay, thank you so much for the explanation about your country. And so I'm sure that it must be a great attraction for the tourists to visit your country because of the features that you have explained.
What are the problems faced in the Cameroon system of education?
Okay. Thank you. The problems we face in Cameroon, I will say, back then, while I was in the US, the teachers went on strike due to poor salary payments. Poor salary payment and non-payment of arrears. You know, when you work, as you work, your salary is supposed to be increased. So that increment was being owed by the government. So the teachers had to go on strike. So you see that most often, those in the public sector, the students who attend public schools, they faced difficulties. While their counterparts in the private schools were going to school, the public schools, the teachers were not there to teach the students. So that was, or that is a major obstacle and a problem to the society and to the economy. Because at the end of the day, all the students will write the same official examination. All the students, irrespective of whether your teachers were not present to teach you or not. That is the first aspect. The second aspect is that generally there is poverty. A lot of poverty such that the parents can't afford logistics for their children. So most children go to school without the basic school necessities. They don't have the basic school necessities like textbooks. Textbook is even worse. Yeah, only few opportune parents can afford textbooks for their kids to go to school, especially those in the private sector. But in the public sector, in the public schools, it is rather difficult. So we manage with that. And then, now that education is going towards the 21st century educational system, we have difficulty in technology, in matching the teaching and technology low in Cameroon. Most schools don't have access to internet, so it makes it difficult. Are you getting me? Most schools do not have access to internet services. So the students, we are still dealing with face-to-face teaching and learning. Yeah, the face-to-face system of learning because of absence of the internet system. And those who even have the internet system, connectivity is poor. Yeah, sometimes it comes, sometimes it's available, sometimes it is absent. And the ministry, which is in charge of education, instituted the system of online or distance education. But even after instituting it, schools don't engage into it because of lack of internet. Yeah, so we are praying for a day that there will be a consensus created between the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Telecommunication to make connectivity possible and available for the common students. Yeah, because our majority of our students are common students. They are not the rich ones that can afford for internet connectivity. Thank you.
Just to brief the fact that students who come to the school, they are deprived of the textbooks. So if they don't have the textbooks, how can they learn the lessons? And so what should be the problem, what solution for this issue?
What we do is the teachers put in enough efforts in making the resources available for the students. Yeah, using the textbooks that were supposed to be used by the students. For those who don't have, trying to encourage community and collaborative work.
Okay.
So that those who own textbooks can afford to share with those who do not own and make the work easier, yeah, for the teacher.
Yeah. So, Sai Surya, it's
Okay.
over to you. Ask clearly.
Hello.
I'm Sai Surya. I'm studying 7th grade. I am 12 years old. My hobbies are reading books, playing games, and watching TV. My future ambition is to become a police officer. Can I ask the question, ma'am?
Come again.
Why is Cameroon education system considered to be good in compare other neighboring African countries?
Countries. I must say, if I understand, if I am versed with the educational system of other African countries, I will talk for my own educational system, because that is what I know much about. We have one of the best educational systems, though we have two systems. We have the French system and the Anglo-Saxon system. Now, with the French system, they have the baccalaureate system. I don't know if you have ever heard of that. They are board system. Meanwhile, with the Anglo-Saxon system, we're talking about the General Certificate of Education. So those are two different systems in Cameroon. Yeah. For the baccalaureate system, they go through seven years in secondary school, 7 years, within which they have 3 official examinations. 3 official examinations that you must pass one each to go to the next level. So those are the examinations that block some students not to move on. In the English subsystem, in the Anglo-Saxon system, we have 2 official examinations. And there are also 7 years that our students spend in secondary school before getting into the university. I don't know how you call in the US, they call it college, but in our country we call it university, and call the secondary school, we instead call our secondary school college. Then we call the college that American refers to as university. So in terms of our curriculum, our system is one of the best, especially as we have totally converted the teaching from objective-based approach to competency-based approach. In the days of objective-based approach, where the teacher did everything, and we could imagine, we were merely imagining science, like in space. But now with competency-based approach, we encourage, first of all, we encourage locals to write textbooks, unlike before that we used to. Secondly, we encourage teachers to use locally made materials as resources. Unlike before that, since the resources were not available, we were just seeing them in space. But now we can afford to touch some resources because we are using what is available around us, not what the white will refer to, which is what is available in their own system, but what is similar and available around us. That's what we will use. So I want to say that my system, that's what I know much about, is one of the best educational system, though some resources are not available, but it is good. We are advancing and going towards that. All we need to do, the main thing we need to change in Africa. It is a political system to linking politics and education, which shouldn't be like that. Right?
What are the aims of education in Cameroon?
What are the aims of education in Cameroon? In Cameroon, most learners want to obtain a job after school. They just believe that immediately they leave school, they will obtain a job. Even while I was a student, that was my belief, that when I leave the university, I will just obtain a job. But it is not that possible, because the system back then used to be objective based. We were not trained into the job market. Our educational system was not training us into the job market. It is now that, since it has been transformed from objective based to competency based, now students can be sure that after school they can obtain something that can bring food on their table. But before, it wasn't like that. So you see that the main aim was, and now is, for each person to obtain a well-paid job that you can use to feed your family. Some go to school because at the end of the day, they would like to further their studies abroad. They would like to specialize abroad. That's the notion that most of our learners have. They want to excel, to be the best, and then, if possible, they also obtain scholarships that can help them further their education abroad.
Yeah. So Masood, are you available to ask the question?
Yes, sir.
Ask your question clearly, quickly.
Hello, ma'am. My name is Sheikh Masoodul Haq. I am a 7th grader. My hobbies are playing games, reading books, and cycling. My life ambition is to become an aeronautical engineer. Can I ask a question, ma'am?
Go ahead.
What subjects are taught in Cameroon?
All the subjects that you know are taught in our schools, in secondary schools. Can you give me the subjects you know are taught in schools?
Yeah, Masood, can you list out the subjects that you learn at school? List out the subjects.
They are Telugu, Hindi, English, Maths, Science, Social, etc.
Etc.
I like that. I like that. So in Cameroon, what you have just listed, all of that is taught in Cameroon. We have English is taught because we have our local languages. So English is still taught. French is taught. Spanish is taught. For the French system of education, they teach Spanish, they teach German, they teach Chinese. But for the English system of education, we end with French. After English, we carry out the French language. Then they teach geography, they teach economics, they teach history, they teach chemistry, biology, physics, and mathematics. What you have just called science, now we teach in this manner separately. Chemistry separately, physics separately, biology separately. Biology, in some countries they call it life sciences. Then geology they call it earth sciences. So all of that we separate and teach them separately. Each of those subjects have their respective teachers.
So it seems that.
And then our system is made up of you have the general educational system and the technical educational system. So those subjects I just called are for the general educational system. For the technical system now, you start having drawing, technology, yes, and mechanical. That's they pick now aspects of this general subject and do them detailing in a technical manner. You cannot judge a fish when it's on land. You judge the fish while it is in water. So we, at first, we used to consider those slow learners when we were not having inclusive education. We were considering those slow learners as the type that should be sent to technical education. Yeah. And they were treated as such. In the technical education, in their institution, they were treated as such. That since they are slow learners, they were not given that encouragement to continue after secondary level. So they too were not, they couldn't continue. Very few could continue.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tabud, I have to share you one thing, that there are 10% of the students in my school, they are not doing well academically. So as a teacher, what I suggest them that please leave the school, quit the school and do some job. But if the same technical subjects are taught in the school, students, the 10% of the students can get benefit out of this particular program, and they can maybe look for a early job. So instead of pushing the students, instead of discouraging them to quit the school, if the same technical course that your school and your administration and your government is implementing in your country, the same is implemented in our schools, in my school especially, and the students, those 10% students can be saved. That's yes.
How is
education financed in Cameroon?
Okay, education is in the public institutions. We have a minimal rate that parents pay as school fees. It's really minimal. It's very small for public schools. But apart from that minimal amount, we also have what we call the PTA, Parents Teachers Association levy, which parents now, we normally consider that for schools to run better, parents should assist the government in running schools. So the parents have a levy that they call Parent Teachers Association, that when they pay, it is the school that manages the running and usage of that amount. But there's little amount they pay as fees, which is called the school fees. When after collected, it is sent to the government's coffers. Then the government now has a percentage that it uses and sends to the schools. But the PTA levy is run and it is managed by the school itself. For private schools, obviously, it is very expensive. Private school, they are very expensive. Yeah. So there are parents who prefer to send their kids to private schools, while those who don't have money, they send their kids to public school. And some parents have the notion that private schools do better than public schools. So they send their children to private schools. I just gave you one obstacle when it concerns public school. Strike actions with teachers. For the private sector is not common to have a strike action, because the strike will not be for all the private schools. If I thought they want to strike, it will be for a particular private school. But for public schools, it will be for all public schools, because public schools are owned by the government, by the state. So that is how individuals sponsor their kids. Yeah. Right.
Why is Cameroon called Africa in miniature?
Interesting. Cameroon is a unique country that is found in the west of Africa. So if you are asked to give the countries that are found west of Africa, Cameroon will be one of those. At the same time, Cameroon is found in the central part of Africa. So for the CEMAC, that's what we call CEMAC, the Central African countries. Cameroon is also a member of CEMAC. And then you have the ECOWAS, which is the West African countries. Cameroon is part. And then when you look at Cameroon, it's at the curvature of Africa, sharing a border with the Atlantic Ocean. So Cameroon has that uniqueness that no other African country has. Sure, go ahead.
Which schools are more popular in your country, private or public?
Private now are gaining grounds. The private schools are gaining grounds. But it depends on the financial level of the population. The government schools are everywhere, but the private schools are now gaining grounds because of this aspect of preaching that every child should be educated. Every child should and must be educated. So the government tried to make a scheme at the level of elementary schools, primary school, where education is free for the public schools, but the private school is still expensive for at the level of elementary. So because we are preaching that every child must be educated, at least every child must have an elementary educational level, but the government is not able to educate the population of learners. So they
have much sophisticated infrastructure facilities in our school, and we are providing the midday meal to the students. We are providing the free textbooks to the students, a free uniform, and everything is free. But still the parents inclined to send their wards to the private schools. As you have just mentioned that public schools, they have a good trained teachers. So the same system, we too have the trained teachers, and the private schools, as you know, that as at their whims and prances, they just recruit their teachers irrespective of their qualification. But the parents' point of view, they would like to send their children to the private schools, keeping something in their mind. So
yeah, so in that case, what the private sector does is, since we are preparing to go back to school in September, what the administration does is they now call for our assistants, the inspectors, to go now and train their teachers, their staff. We go now and give them some professional training course before the school year begins.
Okay, so what about the salaries wise, private schools teachers and public school teachers, and who gets the highest salary and who gets the lowest?
The public school gets the highest salary, while the private school, it depends on your administrator, your employer. Yeah, so they have their various rates, but for the public school, if you compare their salaries, on an average, the public school earns better and constant. For the private sector, they pay them just for the 9 months that schools run. While some pay them for 12 months. So it depends on your employer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how often do you have the trainings? As
often as the government, as often like what we do at the beginning of the school year, we are sent out per your locality, we organize training at the beginning of this academic year. We are going to have some trainings. Meanwhile, we just did a training session on last Wednesday for STEM teachers in where I am. But for the entire nation, at the beginning of this, in September, at the beginning, we are going to, in all the 10 regions, we are going to organize training for all schools, be it public or private. Everybody is concerned. Yeah, we do the training. Then, towards the end of the first term, we go back to get feedback whether what they were trained for is being applied.
And do you need to prepare the lesson plans before you enter the class?
Each teacher prepares his or her lesson plan. We just go and see.
Yourself now is the inspector of the schools. So when you inspect a school, when you visit a school, what aspects you keep in mind related to the lesson plans, or their efficiency, and what are the aspects that you keep in mind?
Management, how they manage their classroom, which is very important. Classroom management is the core, because if you do not manage the classroom properly, then the content you are about teaching will not be able to be. With us, as the level increases, that is, you know, our 6th grade is the Form 1. So we have 50. The government recommends 50, but you go to some schools, because of the demand, high demand, they have 60, they have 70. So as it grows, it moves upwards. That's how the number 2 keeps increasing. As it moves upward, the number keeps increasing, because, you know, people, some students might fail the public exam. Yeah. And when they fail, the number at that level will multiply, because the people in the previous level have come now and met them at that level. So that number increases. That's why we always have a high population in this 11th and 12th grades.
There are individual differences. Some students, they do well, some students, they don't. So the IQ levels are a bit different. So in my personal experience, I teach from grade 6 to grade 10. From grade 6 to grade 10, I find in each classroom, there are nearly 10 students, their levels in the English language is very low. So when I identify these students, I give them a separate concept for them to what we call it a remedial teaching. I give them a remedial teaching. I don't involve these students with the rest of the students. I don't teach all the students. So after identifying their individual differences, I give them separate training. So what kind of strategies do your students, do your teachers adopt in their classrooms when they identify these individual differences in the classroom?
Okay, thank you very much. I will rather say that it is the parents most often that will identify their children as being slow learners. And once that happens, the parents start contacting teachers they feel are the best for their children, for we call it, we normally call it part-time classes. The teacher will be taking an extra hour after school, trying to bring up the learner up to a certain level.
Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes we have some teachers that have created schools in the evening for this kind of children. And then they are the ones who go fishing out the parents that your child is weak, your child is like this, is weak in class, enroll your child in these extra classes, and the parents now will, those who have money, who have enough money, they will go in for that. But we discourage some teachers who would not want to teach enough, will not want to teach in school normally because he owns a private school somewhere, so that the parents now will come and enroll the kids in that private school. We try to discourage such attitude. We ask teachers to do their best in their schools and teach properly. Now, at the level of the student does not understand. Then we will understand that yes, the student can come for remedial